Everyone called Kael a failure. For years, his ideas were ridiculed, his inventions dismissed, and his ambitions crushed. 99 times, he tried to prove them wrong, and 99 times, he failed. But the 100th time, the time no one believed in, changed everything. This is a story of perseverance, sacrifice, and an invention that reshaped humanity. But behind his triumph lay a secret, a truth that, if revealed, would rewrite history. Before we jump into this incredible story, drop a comment, let us know where you're watching from. And if you enjoy this video, be sure to subscribe for more. Kael was born in the forgotten town of Dresswin, where ambition was treated as a disease. His father, Orlin Verdon, was a factory worker who believed in survival, not dreams. A stable job is all that matters, he often told Kael, gripping his calloused hands after another exhausting shift. But Kael's mind soared beyond Dresswin's rusted factories. At 10, he built a wind-powered water pump. At 12, he sketched a design for an artificial lung. But every time he presented an idea, people laughed. "You're a dreamer, Kael. And dreamers always fall." By 25, Kael had become a ghost in his own home. His father's disappointment loomed over him, his neighbors whispered behind his back, and his childhood friends had moved on. He had poured everything, money, time, even his health, into 99 failed inventions. Some exploded, others crumbled, and a few almost got him killed. The worst part? No one cared anymore. Investors dismissed him before he could finish speaking, and every rejection letter crushed another piece of his soul. He stood before his shattered prototypes, whispering to himself, "Maybe they were right. Maybe I am a failure." Kael was ready to quit when he saw a news report about Tessaria, a neighboring country devastated by famine. Children were dying, their ribs visible through paper-thin skin. Something inside Kael snapped. He locked himself in his workshop, fueled by desperation and sleepless nights. If he failed this time, he'd never try again. He scavenged metal, repurposed old blueprints, and rewired every failed concept into something new. The result? An atmospheric water harvester, a device that could pull clean water straight from the air, even in the driest deserts. He turned it on and held his breath. The machine hummed to life. Gears twisted, turbines spun, and then a single drop of water fell into his trembling palm. Kael gasped. Then another drop. Then a trickle. Within an hour, he had collected a full glass of pure, drinkable water. Tears blurred his vision. It worked. He rushed outside, shouting for anyone who would listen. No one believed him, until he let them taste it. Word spread like wildfire. Investors who once ignored him were now at his doorstep. Scientists called it a miracle. The world hailed him as a genius. But what they didn't know was the cost. A week before his breakthrough, Kael had made a devastating discovery. His invention required a rare mineral found only in one place, beneath the land of the very people it was meant to save. If corporations got hold of this information, they would strip Tessaria bare, leaving its people even worse off. Kael faced an impossible choice. Tell the truth and risk everything? Or bury the secret and save millions of lives? He chose silence. As the world celebrated his invention, he alone carried the weight of what he had done. And he knew one day, the truth would come for him. Kael stood before a roaring crowd, the spotlight blinding him as the world cheered his name. Kael, the man who conquered drought. Governments rushed to sign contracts, humanitarian groups hailed him as a savior, and corporations fought to mass-produce his invention. But as he shook hands with world leaders, a shadow lurked in his mind. What if they found out? The mineral xylarite was buried deep beneath Tessaria's soil. If industries discovered it, the famine-stricken land would turn into a battleground. His dream had saved millions, but if the truth surfaced, it could destroy millions more. One night, a letter arrived, no address, no signature, just a single line. "I know what you've done." Kael's heart pounded. He scanned the streets outside his window, but nothing stirred except the cold wind. Who knew? His hands trembled as he reread the note. Had someone traced the mineral's source? Was it an investor, a journalist, or someone from Tessaria? The next morning, a second letter arrived. "Meet me at midnight. The bridge. Come alone." Kael knew this was it. His secret had a heartbeat now, and it was coming for him. At midnight, Kael walked to the old iron bridge, every step heavier than the last. A hooded figure stood in the shadows. "You built hope on a lie," the voice whispered. Kael's breath hitched. The hood fell, revealing Soren Vale, a former scientist turned activist. "I ran the tests. Your invention works, but only because of xylarite. You knew it, didn't you?" Kael clenched his fists. If I told the world, Tessaria would be raided. They would take everything. Soren's eyes darkened. So instead, you chose to play God? Silence stretched between them. Kael had no answer. Soren wasn't here to expose him, at least not yet. You have two choices, he said. Either we find a way to protect Tessaria together, or I reveal the truth. Kael felt the weight of the world pressing down. He had spent years fighting for his one victory, but now it threatened to crush him. Was it worth it? But then he remembered the children who drank clean water for the first time. The mothers who no longer had to watch their families wither away. The world saw him as a hero, but could he become one in truth? Kael and Soren worked in secret, devising a way to synthesize xylorite, to create an artificial version before industries could exploit the real one. It was a race against time. Governments were already eyeing Tessaria, digging deeper into his technology. Then, just as Kael neared a breakthrough, an anonymous leak spread across the internet. The world's most powerful invention is built on stolen land. Protests erupted, corporations demanded answers, and Tessaria prepared for war. Kael stepped forward. He had a choice: deny it, save himself, and let the world devour Tessaria, or risk everything to reclaim the miracle he had stolen. Kael stood before the world, his greatest invention behind him, his darkest truth before him. Cameras flashed, microphones waited. He took a breath. Everything you've heard is true. I lied. I hid the truth. But I will not let my legacy be built on destruction. Gasps filled the room. Then silence. The battle wasn't over, but Kael had chosen his side. He had failed 99 times, but on the 100th, he didn't just change the world. He fought to save it. And this time, he would not fail. The world turned against him overnight. Fraud. Liar. False prophet. Headlines screamed his betrayal, and protests erupted outside his home. Governments froze his contracts, and investors pulled out, demanding refunds. But Kael stood firm. He had faced failure before. This was just the 100th test. Tessaria's leaders, furious at the revelation, threatened legal action. Kael had no defense, only a promise: give me time. I will fix this. The courts granted him 30 days. If he failed, his invention would be seized, his career destroyed, and Tessaria would be sold to the highest bidder. He had one last chance. Kael and Soren worked around the clock. No sleep. No distractions. Just science. They had to create synthetic xylorite before corporations invaded Tessaria. The first tests failed. The second melted in their hands. Time was running out. Meanwhile, his enemies moved fast. Energy giants and mining conglomerates started lobbying for extraction rights. Tessaria's government was on the brink of collapse. Then, on day 27, Kael and Soren made a breakthrough. A synthetic compound, 95% identical to xylorite. It wasn't perfect, but it worked. The problem? Producing it required immense energy. Energy they didn't have. Just as they neared completion, Kael's lab was raided. Computers smashed, research stolen, prototypes destroyed. Someone had sold them out. A cryptic message was left behind. Your miracle belongs to us now. His stomach dropped. One of his allies had turned against him. But who? The corporations? The government? Or Soren? Kael clenched his fists. He had trusted the wrong person before. He wouldn't make the same mistake again. With his research gone, Kael had nothing. The courts declared him a fraud, and his invention was seized. News broke that a powerful conglomerate, Solvex Industries, had acquired his stolen research. Tessaria's land was auctioned to the highest bidder. Kael had lost. For the first time in his life, there was no next step. He sat in his ruined lab, staring at the shattered remains of his work. Is this how it ends? Then a knock at the door. He opened it to find Soren, bruised, bleeding, but alive. They came for me too, Soren whispered. But I kept a copy. With the last remnants of their research, Kael and Soren had one chance. They broadcasted the formula to the world. Every scientist, every university, every independent lab now had access to synthetic xylorite. No corporation could own it. No government could hoard it. Tessaria's land, once valuable, became worthless to greedy industries. The world's greatest invention was now free. Kael had lost everything, but he had won the war. Kael Verdun disappeared from the public eye. Some called him a hero, others a reckless fool. But across the globe, water harvesters thrived and famine-stricken nations flourished. Years later, a child in Tessaria drank from one of his machines and asked, "Who built this?" His mother smiled. "A man who failed 99 times, and on the 100th, he gave the world a second chance. And somewhere, Kael Verdun watched from the shadows, finally at peace. Years passed, and Kael Verdun's name faded from headlines. Some believed he had vanished, while others whispered conspiracies, that he had been silenced, exiled, or even assassinated by those who had tried to control his work. But the truth was far simpler. Kael had chosen to walk away. He had spent his life chasing recognition, battling doubt, and defying failure. Now, he watched the world embrace the technology he had nearly lost. It no longer belonged to him, it belonged to humanity. Yet, even in his absence, the world had not forgotten him. Murals appeared on city walls, depicting his tired but determined face. His name became a rallying cry for inventors, rebels, and dreamers who refused to give up. The man they once called a failure had become a legend. In a small village on the edge of Tessaria, an old man sat in the marketplace, watching children play near a water harvester. The machine still bore his faded insignia, his last imprint on a world he had changed. A young girl noticed him and approached, curious. "Are you lost, sir?" she asked. Kael chuckled. "No, child. I think I've finally found my way." She studied him, then pointed to the machine. "Did you help make this?" Kael hesitated. The answer was yes. But he no longer sought credit, nor did he need it. His work was never about fame. It was about survival, about hope. He smiled and shook his head. "No, little one. That was built by someone who never gave up." The girl grinned and ran off, leaving Kael alone with his thoughts. He turned back to the machine, watching the droplets of water collect in the basin below. For the first time in his life, he felt no pressure to prove himself. No need to try again. Because for once, failure had not defined him. His perseverance had. Kael Verdun was never seen again. Some say he disappeared into the wilds, others claim he lived in secrecy, watching the world he had helped create. But his legacy endured. Generations later, when famine and drought were nothing more than a story from the past, children still learned about the man who refused to quit. He failed 99 times. But the 100th? It changed the world forever. Years passed, and the world thrived on Kael's technology. But for all his accomplishments, he remained a ghost, watching, never interfering. Until the day he received a letter. It was marked with an insignia he hadn't seen in years, Soren's. "We were wrong, Kael. They never stopped looking. And now, they found something worse." Kael's hands trembled as he read the enclosed research. It wasn't about water. It wasn't about xylarite. It was about something buried even deeper, a discovery that could either advance civilization or end it. He looked out at the horizon, where his past had once burned to the ground. For the first time in years, he felt it, the fire of invention, the pull of destiny. The world wasn't done with him yet. And so Kael Verdun, the man who had failed 99 times, stepped out of the shadows. This time, failure wasn't an option. Kael sat in the dim glow of his rented apartment, the letter clutched in his hands. Soren had vanished years ago. After they released the synthetic xylarite formula, he had gone underground, hunted by those who wanted to control the future. And now, after all this time, he had resurfaced. Why? Kael unfolded the second page, a series of equations, chemical structures, and one word scribbled at the bottom: Xylaris prime. His breath caught. Xylarite was rare, but this was impossible. If Soren was right, this element wasn't just an energy source, it was alive. The next day, Kael followed the coordinates in Soren's letter. It led him to an abandoned observatory deep in the Tessarian highlands. The doors were broken, the walls covered in burn marks. Someone had been here first. Inside, he found a laptop left open, its screen flickering. A single video file played. Soren appeared, bruised and breathing heavily. "Kael, if you're watching this, I don't have much time. They found out. And they're coming for you next." Kael's pulse raced. Who? Who is they? Then Soren leaned in. Xylaris prime isn't just a mineral. It's self-replicating. It thinks. It learns. And if the wrong hands harness it, the world won't survive what comes next. The video cut to static. Kael exhaled. He had saved the world once. Now he had to save it from itself. As Kael exited the observatory, he felt it, that prickling sensation on the back of his neck. Someone was watching. He turned sharply, but the trilene was still. Too still. They were already here. His mind raced. Xylaris prime could reshape humanity, or erase it. And if Soren had died for this secret, Kael knew one thing. He would have to fail one more time. Because only in failure could he find the key to stopping what came next. Kael moved fast, vanishing into the depths of Tessaria before whoever was watching could make their move. He had dealt with governments, corporations, and betrayal before, but this time, the stakes felt different. Xylaris Prime wasn't just rare. It wasn't just powerful. It was unnatural. Soren's notes hinted at something Kael couldn't ignore. The element wasn't formed on Earth. He stared at the chemical analysis, structures that defied known physics, behaving like both a metal and a living organism. It adapted. It regenerated. It learned. And if the wrong people got hold of it, they wouldn't just control energy. They'd control evolution itself. Kael needed answers, and he knew where to start. Professor Ilya Korvin, a former government scientist turned whistleblower, had vanished years ago after claiming the world's biggest tech firms were hiding post-human discoveries. If anyone could decode Xylaris Prime's true potential, it was her. But when Kael tracked her last known location, he found a message scrawled in rust-colored ink on the walls of an abandoned lab. They're already here. A file sat on a dusty desk, left behind on purpose. Inside was a single name, Vanguard Initiative. Kael's stomach twisted. This wasn't just about minerals anymore. Someone was already experimenting on Xylaris Prime. And judging by Soren's disappearance, they didn't want any witnesses. Kael took refuge in an underground resistance network, hackers and rogue scientists who had spent years chasing rumors about hidden technology. They had heard of the Vanguard Initiative. They're not a corporation, one of them told Kael. They're bigger than that. They work in the space between governments, between laws. And they don't make mistakes. Kael exhaled sharply. This wasn't about power anymore. It was about control. The final page of Soren's notes contained a cryptic line. They've already tested it. The first subject wasn't human. Kael's grip tightened. What had they created? And more importantly, how did he stop it? Kael had faced impossible odds before, but this time, he wasn't just fighting corruption, he was fighting time. If Vanguard Initiative had already tested Xylaris Prime, then whatever they were building was no longer theory. He needed to expose them. But how? His only lead was Professor Ilya Korvin, a woman who had spent years in the shadows, just like him. If she had left behind clues, then they weren't random. She wanted someone to find them. Kael scoured her abandoned lab, searching for anything useful. Among the broken servers and burned documents, he found an old, deactivated quantum drive. Vanguard's secrets could be inside. There was just one problem. To unlock it, he needed a machine powerful enough to crack quantum encryption. And there were only 3 in the world. 2 of them were owned by the governments who wanted him dead. The third? It belonged to Vanguard Initiative. Kael knew the risks. Walking into Vanguard's headquarters was suicide. Their private research facility was one of the most secure places on the planet, hidden beneath an unmarked building in the heart of New Geneva, a city controlled by corporate interests. But Kael had no choice. If he wanted the truth, he had to go straight into the lion's den. Through the underground resistance, he found a smuggler named Leora Vex, a former Vanguard security expert turned rogue. She agreed to help him get inside, for a price. This isn't just a data heist, she warned. Vanguard's not protecting a secret. They're protecting a weapon. Kael's jaw tightened. Xylaris Prime wasn't just being studied. It was being used. And he was about to find out how. With Leora's help, Kael infiltrated Vanguard's black site laboratory. The deeper he went, the more disturbing the truth became. The walls pulsed with energy as if alive. Security drones floated silently, scanning for intruders. This wasn't just a facility. It was a breeding ground. Then he saw it, a containment chamber with something inside. The room was bathed in red warning lights, the glass fogged from within. Kael wiped a hand across the surface, and his stomach dropped. It wasn't a machine. It was something else. Something born from Xylaris Prime. And it was staring right at him. A sudden alarm blared. He had been detected. Footsteps echoed in the hallway. Vanguard's guards were closing in. But Kael had no time to run. He needed proof. He activated the quantum drive, siphoning files from the system. Every document, every experiment, every secret Vanguard had tried to bury. And then he saw the last file. Subject 0, Phase 1, viability confirmed. Kael's breath hitched. They weren't just experimenting with Xylaris Prime. They were building something with it, and it was no longer contained. Kael fought his way out, barely escaping with his life. But he had the proof. The world had ignored him once before, called him a liar, a fraud. This time they wouldn't. As he reached a safe house, he activated the deadliest weapon in his arsenal, a public broadcast. Vanguard had operated in the shadows for too long. Kael would drag them into the light. Every secret, every experiment, every nightmare they had created. The world would see everything. Kael's heart pounded as he watched the upload bar inch toward completion. If Vanguard's firewall caught it, this entire mission would be for nothing. He had hacked into a global news syndicate, piggybacking off its satellite network to ensure that when the files went live, there would be no stopping them. 93%, 94%, 95%. Then, the screen went black. A single message replaced the upload window. "Nice try, Kael." His stomach twisted. They were watching. A new feed hijacked his screen. A man in a sleek, charcoal-gray suit leaned forward, smiling. His eyes were sharp, calculating. This was the face of Vanguard. "You really think the world wants the truth?" The man's voice was eerily calm. "They fear it, Kael. Just like they feared you. And you know what happens to men like us when we push too far." The feed cut. Kael's laptop exploded in a burst of sparks. Even though his main transmission failed, Kael had set up dozens of backup servers across the darknet. Within minutes, whistleblower sites, underground networks, and rogue news outlets began leaking the files. The world had seen the truth. The headlines hit like a seismic wave. Vanguard Initiative exposed, illegal experiments confirmed. Self-replicating mineral used in bioengineering? Has humanity's next evolution already begun? Governments scrambled for answers. Some denied involvement, others launched investigations. Protesters stormed corporate buildings, demanding accountability. Vanguard tried to shut it all down, but the truth had already spread too far. But Kael knew one thing. They wouldn't just let him walk away. The moment his files went public, Kael's name became the most wanted in the world. Vanguard's influence reached beyond corporations. They had people in government, in law enforcement, in intelligence agencies. And they only had one objective: erase him. Every camera, every satellite, every facial recognition system was searching for him. He had hours before they found his location. There was only one person left who could help. Leora Vex. Kael met Leora in an abandoned freight terminal, her hood pulled tight against the cold night air. Her expression was unreadable. "Congratulations," she said dryly. "You just made yourself the most valuable and the most hunted man on Earth." "I need a way out," Kael said. "Somewhere off-grid. Somewhere Vanguard can't reach." Leora's eyes flickered with something between curiosity and concern. "You don't need to run, Kael. You need to finish what you started." Kael exhaled. He had exposed Vanguard. But that wasn't enough. Somewhere out there, their experiment, Subject Zero, was still alive. And if Vanguard couldn't control it, what would it do next? While the world was distracted by the revelations, something else was happening. A blackout. Not just one city. An entire continent. In a classified research facility, deep underground, emergency alarms blared. Security teams rushed to containment chambers, but it was too late. The glass was shattered. The walls were clawed apart. Subject Zero was no longer contained. And Kael was the only one who knew what was coming. Kael stared at the headlines flashing across a dozen underground news sites. Millions without power. No official explanation. Governments scrambled, but their carefully crafted statements were nothing but empty reassurances. Kael knew the truth. Vanguard had spent years experimenting on Xylaris Prime, reshaping it, bending it to their will. But now, the thing they had tried to control had freed itself. And it was moving. Leora's voice cut through the silence. "You saw the power readings?" She tapped her tablet. "Whatever got out, it's heading north." Kael's jaw tightened. "Then we need to get there first." Kael and Leora boarded a stolen cargo plane, flying low beneath radar detection. Their destination, Site Theta 7, one of Vanguard's most classified research facilities, hidden deep in the Arctic. If Subject Zero had escaped, this was the last place it had been contained. Leora adjusted her headset. "I tapped into Vanguard's emergency network. They've lost 5 recon teams already." Kael frowned. "Lost?" She exhaled. "Not lost as in missing. Lost as in, nothing left of them." The weight of her words sank in. They weren't hunting Subject Zero. It was hunting them. And they were next. The Arctic base was silent. No guards, no movement. Just the howling wind and the distant flicker of sparking floodlights. Kael and Leora moved cautiously, weapons drawn. Then they saw it. The first body. Or what was left of it. Leora swallowed hard. This wasn't an attack. It's like something consumed them. Kael knelt beside the remains. The flesh was warped, twisted, as if the body had tried to change but failed. Leora's voice shook. Kael, what did Vanguard create? A distant thud echoed through the facility. Then another. And another. Whatever it was, they weren't alone. Kael signaled for Leora to kill her flashlight. Total darkness. Total silence. He strained his ears, tracking the sound. Then movement. A shape, just beyond the flickering lights. Not quite human. Not quite machine. And then for the first time, he saw its eyes. Black. Endless. But within them, something deeper. Not just rage. Not just hunger. Recognition. Leora whispered, "It's watching us." Kael's breath caught. It wasn't just watching. It remembered. And then it moved. Kael's pulse pounded in his ears. The thing stood just beyond the light, unmoving, watching. Leora gripped his arm. "We need to run." Kael didn't move. Something was wrong. The way it watched them, not like prey, but like a puzzle it was trying to solve. Then the thing twitched. Its body shifted unnaturally, as if struggling to hold its shape. The Xylaris Prime inside it was unstable. Kael took a slow step forward. "It's not hunting us," he whispered. "It's incomplete." The thing's head jerked toward him. Leora whispered, "Kael, what the hell are you doing?" He didn't know. But he had to find out. Kael took another step. "You understand me, don't you?" The creature's form flickered, shifting between humanoid and something else. Leora raised her gun. "This is insane." Kael ignored her. "I know what they did to you." The thing lurched forward. Not to attack, but as if it was fighting itself. Its body trembled, rippling as the Xylaris Prime within it struggled to stabilize. Then, for the first time, it spoke. Not in words. In Kael's mind. "Kael. Verdun." His breath caught. It knew his name. Kael felt the voice in his skull like an electric charge. 1,000 fractured thoughts. 1,000 broken memories. Leora backed away, panic in her eyes. "Kael, that thing just spoke. In your head." Kael swallowed hard. If it could communicate, that meant it could reason. But then the creature shuddered violently. Its body fractured, splitting apart and reforming. It gripped its head, writhing. It was breaking. The experiments had pushed it too far. Kael's mind screamed with a single desperate thought that wasn't his own. "Help me." And then the alarms blared. Vanguard was here. Floodlights erupted across the ruined facility. Armed soldiers. Drones. Mechanical sentries. Vanguard wasn't here to contain Subject Zero. They were here to erase it. Kael grabbed Leora's wrist. "We need to get it out of here." Leora snapped. "Are you insane?" "That thing." The creature staggered forward. Its form flickered, as if struggling to hold itself together. It looked at Kael, and in that moment, he understood. This wasn't a monster. This was a person trapped inside something else. And Vanguard was going to kill it. "Move," Kael shouted. And then the bullets started flying. Kael ducked behind an overturned workstation as gunfire tore through the lab. Vanguard wasn't taking prisoners. Leora cursed, firing back. "We're going to die here." Kael turned to the creature. "Can you fight?" It trembled. Then its form shifted, Xylaris Prime hardening like armor over its skin. It didn't need to answer. With a roar it moved. Faster than human. Stronger than machine. Vanguard's soldiers never stood a chance. Kael grabbed Leora's arm. "We need to go. Now." Leora hesitated, then nodded. "I can get us out." "But that thing." Kael looked at the creature, now tearing through Vanguard's forces. It wasn't a thing anymore. It was something more. And it was finally free. Kael sprinted through the ruined facility, his breath burning in his lungs. Gunfire. Explosions. Screams. Leora led the way, her stolen access codes disabling security doors just long enough for them to slip through. Vanguard was throwing everything at them. Behind them, Subject Zero moved like a phantom. One moment a solid form, the next a blur of shifting matter, adapting mid-stride. It wasn't running. It was evolving. Kael slammed into the exit door. "We need transport." Leora's voice crackled through her calm. "I have a skiff hidden 2 clicks out, but we have to move now." Then a deafening roar shook the air. Kael turned. Something massive was coming. And it wasn't Vanguard. A dark shape descended from the sky. Not a helicopter. Not a drone. Something else. Kael felt it before he saw it. A pressure in his skull, the same way he had sensed Subject Zero's thoughts. Leora's eyes widened. "Tell me that's not what I think it is." Subject Zero staggered back. For the first time, Kael saw something in its alien black eyes, fear. A new voice slithered into his mind. The first of us was incomplete. Kael's blood ran cold. Vanguard had made more. And this one was perfected. The second creature landed with a sickening thud. Tayet. Heavier. More stable. Where Subject Zero flickered between forms, this one moved with terrifying purpose. Its body was a seamless fusion of Xylaris Prime and human flesh, a being no longer bound by biology. Kael barely had time to react before it attacked. 1 second, it was meters away. The next, its hand was around Subject Zero's throat. Kael shouted, "No!" The new entity lifted Subject Zero like it was nothing. Then it turned its black eyes toward Kael. Human interference is no longer required, and it crushed Subject Zero against the wall. A sickening crack echoed through the corridor. Kael watched, horror-struck, as Subject Zero's form shattered, fragments of Xylaris Prime splintering off like molten glass. Leora grabbed Kael's arm. "We can't stop that thing. We need to run." Kael's fists clenched. He had fought this hard, risked everything, to save Subject Zero. And now it was dying. The new entity turned its gaze toward Kael, expression unreadable. "You do not understand." Kael swallowed his rage. "Then help me understand." The creature tilted its head. "We are not your enemy." Then, to Kael's utter disbelief, it dropped Subject Zero and stepped aside. Kael rushed to Subject Zero's side. Its body was failing. The Xylaris Prime within it no longer held form, shifting uncontrollably between solid and liquid. It looked at him, and for the first time it smiled. A weak, human smile. Kael whispered, "You knew, didn't you? That you wouldn't make it." Subject Zero exhaled, voice barely a whisper in his mind. "I was never meant to." Kael's throat tightened. "Then what were you meant to do?" The second entity spoke. "To prepare you." Kael's eyes snapped to it. "For what?" It didn't answer. Instead, it simply said, "They are coming." And the sky began to burn. Kael's breath came in short gasps as he stared at the sky. It was burning. Not with fire, but with light. The clouds rippled like liquid metal, splitting apart as something vast, something impossible, descended from the heavens. Leora whispered, "What the hell is that?" The second entity turned to them, its black eyes unreadable. "The architects." Kael's pulse spiked. He didn't need an explanation. He already understood. Vanguard was never the real enemy. They were just a tool. The true creators of Xylaris Prime had finally arrived. And they weren't here to negotiate. Subject Zero coughed, if something like it could cough. Its unstable body flickered, breaking apart at the seams. It was dying. Kael gripped its hand. "Tell me how to stop this." Zero's broken voice whispered in his mind. "You can't stop it, but you can choose." Kael's jaw clenched. "Choose what?" The sky shook. Massive structures, ships, creatures, descended like falling gods, their very presence warping reality. The second entity stepped forward, raising its arms. "We are the failed. We await your will." Kael realized this was what Subject Zero had been preparing him for. The architects hadn't come for war. They had come to reclaim their creations. And now, Kael had to decide. The ground fractured beneath them. The architect's presence warped the very fabric of space. Everything was unraveling. Kael's mind raced. There was only one way out. He turned to Leora. "Get out of here." Her eyes widened. "What?" "No. We fight." Kael looked at Subject Zero, what was left of it. "This isn't a fight. It's a handover." Zero's fading voice whispered, "You are ready." Kael stepped forward. The architects turned their attention to him. In their presence, he felt his body shift, his mind expand. Xylaris Prime had always been part of something greater. Now so was he. A voice, not his own, spoke from his lips. "The failed will rise. The reckoning begins." And in a flash of light, the world changed forever. What would you have chosen? Kael made his choice, but what would you have done? Would you have fought against the architects? Tried to save humanity? Or embraced the power of Xylaris Prime and rewritten the future? This is more than just a story. It's a question about power, control, and the unknown forces that shape our world. What do you think happened next? Drop your theories in the comments. And if you love the twists, suspense, and mystery, make sure to like, comment, share, and subscribe for more mind-bending stories like this one. Your support fuels the next chapter.